Let's start. We are more than 280, so we can start. And I'd like to start to introduce the agenda of our webinar, the Great Change webinar. And then it started with a question: can the fitness industry have a wider, deeper, and more inspirational function? So this is the question that leads us. And we all know that preventative medicine is a lot better than cure. And we all know that in China, in ancient China, doctor used to be paid for every day of a healthy day. And this payment used to be suspended for when someone gets sick or gets some illnesses. This is important because doctors were forced to help people to prevent illnesses. And we all know now that the lifestyle medicine is very important in order to prevent a lot of illnesses related to bad lifestyle habits. And there is also a new epidemic, the sedentary death syndrome, that is really linked to our job, our function, because we know that now a lot of people are spending a lot of hours seated at office or in the traffic or at home. So it's very important for us to help this kind of people to get active. And also help people that are lazy, people that we call Garfield the cat mindset type of people, to get up, work out, move. This is our important role. And now doctors, they are prescribing exercising as a medicine. So we have a lot of support for doctors. And we all know now, during this virus crisis, that the safest thing that you can do is to stay fit and healthy. Fit and healthy save you the life. And it's important now than never to take care of ourselves. And also, we have two purposes with this webinar. The second one is about the health of our planet, because we will never be healthier than the place where we live. So as an industry, as the fitness industry, we can really do something good for the planet and for the fitness industry. This is why we created these webinars that we call the Great Change, so we can do really something good in order to help people, to inspire them to have a fitter bodies, healthier planet, and become happier people. Now, I'd like to introduce you the speakers. And first, let's go with Hanni from Sweden.
Hello, everybody. I'm Annie. I'm from Sweden, in the north of Sweden. I have 4 clubs, 2 full-service clubs and 2 smaller clubs. And I've been in the industry since the early 90s. Took a step to healthcare when I took my bachelor in physical therapy, but since early 2000 I've been back in this industry. And as you might know, we've been able to stay open through this pandemic with the COVID-19, and I hope I can share some numbers and insights with you today, what it means to be open even though there's restrictions in place and people are scared.
Thank you very much. David Minton from Leisure Database, UK.
Thank you, Fausto. As you know, we have been auditing the fitness industry in the UK for 20 years. And people have been asking if we can expand our reach. And recently, we have done that through some intelligent crawlers. And so we're now in touch with 239,000 fitness sites around the world. But the sad the sad element is 64% of them are closed at the moment. But more of that later.
Thank you very much. Victor Brick from US.
Hello, everybody. I'm Victor Brick. I'm the CEO of Planet Fitness Growth Partners. Planet Fitness Growth Partners is a franchisee in the Planet Fitness chain. Planet Fitness has 2,200 clubs in the United States and in parts of Canada and South America, 15 million members. We, Planet Fitness Growth Partners, have clubs in Maryland, Tennessee, Florida, Seattle, Washington, and in Australia. And all Planet Fitness clubs are closed at the moment. We've been closed since March 17th. They are beginning to open clubs in the United States as of last Friday, but no Planet Fitness clubs have been opened yet. I'm also the CEO or the founder of Brick Bodies, which is a luxury brand in Baltimore, and they too are closed as well. Nice to be here.
Jonathan.
Thank you, Fausto, and hello, everyone. I function as the CEO of Holmes Place Brands. That owns a few brands, one of which is Holmes Place. Holmes Place was founded by my father 40 years ago. It's been in business over 40 years. It has over 100 clubs across 8 countries, and some licensed and some owned. And I've been in this business for about 23 years. In addition to my role as CEO of Holmes Place Brands, I function as the chairman of an exciting and fast-growing new boutique hit concept called Tribe. And I was educated at Cambridge University with a social and political science master's. I'm married with 2 children and currently live in Portugal. All of our businesses are closed apart from one franchisee of Tribe in Helsinki.
Perfect. Thank you, Brent Darden.
Hello, thank you, Fausto. Yes, I'm Brent Darden in the United States, and I currently chair 3 REX executive roundtables in the U.S. I know many of you from my travels around the world. I'm also an international consultant and speaker, a former URSA chairperson, and the status of clubs in the U.S. is quite disparate. We have a number of clubs that are beginning to open. A few opened in some states last week. Others are projecting that they won't be open until the middle of June or perhaps even later. So in the United States, it's really related to opening by the state that you live in. And again, some have opened as recently as last week, and some it'll be quite some time. Through my REX chair duties, I get the opportunity to speak with at least 45 to 60 roundtable members who all own clubs all over the U.S. So it's a great opportunity for me to hear what's happening and be aware of what the latest ideas are. Thank you.
Thank you, Brent. Paula.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Okay, I'm Paula Caleça. I'm a psychologist, and I've been in this area since 2011. I've been with REX for 2 years now, and it has been a great experience with all my group partners. Recently, I'm a board member of Portugal Ativo, entity that officially regulates and represents fitness in Portugal. And my company, Grupo Gymnasium, have been open since 2011, and I'm an owner of 4 clubs operating in the Algarve, southern of Portugal.
Thank you very much, Paula. Anthony Barquisseau.
Bonjour, everyone. And I'd like to thank Fausto to organizing this. I think you've been a great leader for us as a REX member, and it's great that you bring all these great people together. I'm 43 years old. I've been in the industry for 20 years now, and I used to work for a sports retail company called Decathlon. I set up sports companies for them, and then 2 years ago I buy out the company with an investment firm, and our club is about 2,500 square meters, 250 classes a week per club, a lot of classes, starting at 2 years old. And the business model is a little bit different because you pay by hours, you pay by time to get in the club. We love the first priority of the company is happiness for our team. Got great team, and the second one is really about we want to be a small giant. So last week there was Bo Birmingham, who's a great guy. Then for French side, it's been locked down since the mid of March, and we got a lot of help from the government. So I think we're very blessed about this, and there will be a lot of opportunities for everyone. So I think we can look into it today.
Thank you, Anthony. And now it's the time to introduce myself. I'm Fausto Di Giulio. I'm Rex CEO for the EMEA region. What's Rex? Rex is a community of owners and CEOs, and we meet 3 times a year for 3 days around the world. And now we are only doing virtual meeting, of course. And what we do, we'll travel, we meet with the goal of improve the competitiveness, profitability, and the quality of life of the members. And we believe in the collaborative economy in order to be able to make better business decisions. And our 3 main goals are innovation, strategy, and leadership. Regarding the innovation, we share during the meeting ideas and experiences. And also regarding the strategies, we support, we challenge, we give feedback each others. And regarding leadership, we also inspire and help and challenge each other to change the mindset to be, in order to be more agile, bold, and creative. And during the meeting, we'll have speakers coming from the inside the industry or from the outside the industry. This was in Iceland, the CEO and founder of the Blue Lagoon. And then also we do club tours. So to visit hundreds of clubs around the world. We do the club inspections where we visit our members' club to give them feedbacks for improvements. We also go outside the industry to visit other companies. We call this visit business safaris. Recently, we also visited the Expo. Now they postponed. And we like to do this meeting around the world in a very inspiring place. This is the Finland. And what is important also in Rex are the informal conversations that there are between members. And that's it. This is me and Rex. Now, let's start with about talking about the tactics with Annie. Annie, could you please say something about the life in Sweden? You never stopped. Could you say something? What's the life in a fitness club where during this open time?
Yeah, like you say, Fausto, we never stopped. We've been open through this, but we've been open with restrictions. And did you get my slides there, Fausto? Or should I share my own slide? Let me.
But you can share.
I can share this one, yeah. Can you see that now?
Yeah.
Yeah, so these are basically the guidelines that we are working with. The government is just saying stay at home if you feel sick. If you're over 70, you're supposed to stay at home all the time, even if you're not sick. Basically, wash your hands. And then for the club, what we've said is change at home if you can. The locker rooms are still open, but we've encouraged the members to change at home if possible. And of course, keep your social distance. And like you can see on those pictures, for the group classes, we've every other bike or so is booked, so you can't. It's 50% capacity for the Group X classes. And also on the top there, you can see the BioCircuit is the mid treadmill and bike is closed, so you can keep your distance there as well. Basically, we ask the members to clean their equipment before and after they use it. And the overall restriction in Sweden is maximum 50 people in one room, but not in the club. So it's just 50 people in, like, for one group X. We've actually reduced the number below that, but it's 50 people. But we don't have to keep count on how many people are actually in the club. There's no restriction there. And then these are the numbers. I put March and April together just to compare from 2019 to 2020 from this year. And as you see, the visits are down 25% overall, whereas the Group X is down 52% in visits. So obviously, I mean, the gym rats are still there, but it's more the Group X people and the elderly, of course, and people in risk groups. So far, 5% of members have chosen to freeze the membership. Cancellations, 6%. And revenue is down 30%. And that is all memberships and non-dues revenues included for the past 2 months. So sales is slow, even though we're open. We do have some help from the government, though. So money-wise, we're doing okay so far.
Is getting better the situation or not now?
Well, the situation with the COVID is I think getting better. The curve is flattening, and people seem. I think after Easter we saw an increase in visits. Actually, the first weeks of March and first 2 weeks in April were worse than now. We see more people coming back to the club. So it will be interesting to see for May if it's gonna be better. But then again, in Sweden, like in some other Nordic countries in Europe, people don't tend to want to come to the gym in the summer anyway. So we're going towards a slower time for our business, COVID or not. So
thank you very much. Thank you. David Minton, UK.
Sorry, I'm just gonna.
Yeah.
Fausto, let me pick up on your tagline behind you for today's webinar. Fitter bodies, healthier planet, healthier people. I think the pandemic has highlighted how social inequalities affects our health. And the fitness industry has a responsibility to help spearhead social reform. So in the UK, patients with COVID that required ventilation, if you were obese, 85% needed ventilation. If you were at normal weight and healthy, just over 40%. So being healthy gives you the opportunity to have a healthier life. And in the UK, our government is now putting out public health messages that we should be exercising 1 hour every day. And could this pandemic induce messages to exercise on a prolonged basis? This gives the industry in the UK a huge opportunity and a much bigger market. So we were only at 15.6%. Could this increase and double because the opportunity that the government, through more public health messages, will give us to get to a wider audience?
Thank you. Thank you very much, David. Victor, US.
So what I want to talk about is what we're doing now that we're closed. In the US, all clubs closed. So all of a sudden we went from billing whatever we were billing to zero. We still had leases. We still had a lot of expenses. one of the first things a lot of companies did was lay off all their staff. We chose to keep on all of our full-time staff. We think at a time like this, at a time of crisis, you really find out whether you live your values. And we believe you don't rise to the occasion, you fall back on your training. And we think that in times of crisis, you can tell what kind of business you work for by how they treat their employees during times of crisis. So we kept all of our full-time staff on. We kept our part-time staff on until they were able to, we were clear as to what the government programs were that were available. We kept all of our full-time staff on, but it's not just enough to keep people on. We had to keep them engaged. We were fighting a war, and the war was against coronavirus. And I looked at myself as the general, and I need to keep my army intact so when the real battle comes, we're ready. So we had our managers basically be available to answer all emails that came to their club. You couldn't have that happen if they weren't on staff. So they were handling all the emails. We've had days, because we can register online, we've had days when there have been less cancellations than online memberships, because when people would call, instead of just canceling them automatically, our managers would talk to them, explain to them the situation, and get them to either freeze or to agree to stay. The second thing we've done, which is kind of unique, is that every day we have at 3 o'clock all hands huddle. And during that 3 o'clock huddle, depending on who's giving it, Lynn and I always do it every Monday, and I give a little motivational talk for 10 minutes, and then Lynn does an exercise program for a half hour every day, 3 o'clock, and all hands huddle. And so we've tried to really keep the Army intact, and here we are getting ready to open sometime in the next 2 weeks, and all of our people are on staff. They're happy. We get emails all the time of how thankful they are that we've taken care of them. And when the gates open, we'll be ready to begin operation very quickly without having to rehire, find people, because a lot of them would have left, and basically to recreate the Army. So that's what we're doing while we're closed, in the expectation that we will need these people happy and motivated when the time comes to re-engage.
Thank you, Victor. Jonathan.
Thank you, Fausto. I find that I agree with a lot of what my fellow colleagues here have said. I think the interesting thing that I can contribute here to this discussion is I have a perspective over several different countries. And as a result, one of the things I've seen is that with different cultures, you really get different scenarios. So what we've had to do here is to really decentralize the decision-making process. So, Germany takes a very different approach to what's happening in Spain or in Portugal or in Israel for that matter. So each country has got its own culture. Public opinion is forging in different directions in each country. Governments are taking different decisions. And in many ways, there's no right or wrong. This is just the reality. So really, I've been using 3 filters with which to try and inform all of our decision-making processes. The first one is agility. So we have to have agility in order to pivot our decisions. Be very quick. Realities are changing so quickly and developing so quickly that you find you've built a scenario, and in the very next day, that scenario has changed, and you need to be able to respond quickly. So having agility for me during this period of managing this turbulence is really important. And in order to facilitate agility, it's about making the decision-making process more and more easy and more quick, and delegating decisions to different people within the organization. The second aspect of these 3 filters is communication. Making sure that communication is really prompt and regular. And that's to all stakeholders in the business. It's to your own teams, it's to your members, obviously, and it's to your suppliers and your shareholders and all the stakeholders. Try and make sure that communication is prompt and regular. And then finally, it's about being transparent. This is such a deep crisis, so unprecedented in my generation, certainly, that the only way to get
we have some problem with the line. Let's see, otherwise we can continue later. Yeah, let's go to Brent. Brent, and then we'll continue with Jonathan.
Yes, so the clubs in the U.S., by and large, have moved through sort of three phases. First was the survival phase when they first were told to close, and of course their revenues, most of them went to very, very low because they weren't collecting dues. Most of them furloughed or laid off employees. And they were looking at ways to manage their cash flow and make sure they would be able to reopen whenever that came. Then they moved in toward the situation of what we call sort of reset and revival, and authored an article just on that very fact. And during that period when clubs sort of looked at the way they were doing business and looked at the opportunity they had with their club closed to do renovations, to rewrite their sort of training manuals, to develop new programs, to expand their virtual online exercise offerings, any number of things that this sort of time off, if you will, gave them the opportunity to sort of reinvent themselves. And now most of the clubs in the U.S. are moving toward preparing for reopening and what that looks like. Most of the clubs in the U.S. are planning to reopen here in the next several weeks. A very few states here have opened last week, but the majority are just getting ready to position themselves to welcome their members back and celebrate that opportunity. On a bigger scale, and Victor and I were talking about this before the webinar started, in the United States, we've been classified, health clubs have been classified along with entertainment, much like bars, much like bowling alleys, movie theaters. And we really want to help press the issue that we're not entertainment, we're essential. We're part of the solution, not just now, but always for health. And the immunity that you have against the COVID virus has a lot to do with what your health is, just as David suggested based on his research. So that's sort of where the U.S. is right now.
Thank you very much. Jonathan, could you please finish your...
Yeah, thank you.
What are you saying?
A case in point of agility. So, so in different countries, different things were happening. So there are some countries where contracts are contract, and it's actually very acceptable to continue charging the member during the period that the club is closed, because you have a contract and it's accepted. And there'll be some form of compensation given to the member. And there are other countries where that really doesn't apply. So for example, I can give you an interesting example that goes into what Victor said. In Portugal, we took a decision not to lay off our employees. And in Portugal, we felt that it was not appropriate in any way to charge members for the time in which we were closed. And so when the month came to take the subscription fees, we approached all members, and using this, we had been communicating with them regularly. And we communicated with them in a transparent way. And we asked them, we said, we need the revenue, we need the income. Please would you actually elect to pay the month subscription ahead. And we will give you a discount for the remaining part of the year in order to give you that money back. So our members were actually financing our own cash flows as the business. And we got an incredible 20–25% on that coming back. So members responded in a very positive way, and our teams were there and able to work and in order to help make that happen, because we had made a decision to keep them on. So it was a good example of what Victor just mentioned, but I equally have other examples in other countries where they took a decision to lay off and it went down that route. So agility, communication, and transparency is really what we're using in order to manage these turbulent times, and that's what I would offer to the forum.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. Paula, Caleça.
So, hello again. Right now, I have the 4 clubs closed for about 6 weeks now. I kept also my staff working. However, our company, as well the all fitness sector in Portugal, had an excellent reaction capacity, I think. And in a matter of days, it went digital on all platforms like TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, everyone was everywhere. Fitness was the most present sector throughout this lockdown, where the daily routines changed and most people stopped exercising because we are not people of exercise. We don't have that in our culture, okay? The massive presence of this online or this sector online has demonstrated what we all argued for, that sports is an essential part of everyone's routine. We would like that our government to recognize the importance of this sector for public health. Anyway, from my point of view, as a psychologist, I advocate and promote healthy lifestyles among all our members to improve their mental health and also positive behaviors. Because where I come from, I'm southern of Portugal, and it's a very poor region, okay? So I've decided to stay as close to the routine as possible, and I've provided for free recorded group classes broadcast live every day at fixed times, established weekly. The reason for establishing these hours was to help families to maintain their daily routines. And they thank us for it, for keeping them exercising and keeping some routine in their lives.
Thank you very much, Paula.
Thank you.
Anthony from France.
Right. First, I think we need to think what this period has to offer. And the main thing it has to offer is time. So if you got time, we need to get this time to think about. And I think you need to have a plan in this period, not just falling in love with every opportunities you find, because you can fall in love with so many things. Everything is everywhere, as Paula said. So what we try to do first is having a plan in a 3 times period. First, we need to connect with our teams, as Victor said. I think it's a very, very important thing. As the 4 discipline of execution told us, you need to have accountability with your team. So every week we got meetings, and I called everyone. It's about 100% of my employees, just to know how they are and just to know if they need anything. And I think every CEO needs to do that, getting close to your team. So that was the first plan, connect with the team. The second plan was connect with the people, connect with our customers. And then we launched a lot of things, but once again, with a plan in mind. We start with the Genae TV on YouTube channel, showing, I think, 100,000 views in a few weeks. Then we launch live on Instagram, on Facebook, like everyone. We also launch radio on Spotify, where you can listen to the music of your coaches. And also you can listen to podcasts. And I think it's very important to bring content to the people, and they will know the know-how of your team. So we try to launch this, and this week we are launching paying classes, because all of this is free. But we are making our first euros of revenues because we create the audience first, and we create the people to know us. And now we are monetizing everything, and we start to sell classes on Zoom application. And I think one thing we learn about this is now you're competing worldwide, but what people are interested in seeing their coaches. And if you've been very good with the relationship between your coaches and the people during the life before, I think it will pay now, because people don't want to have a class with someone, across the world. They want to have a class with their own coaches. And then we also use all this platform to make leads. And we're trying to use every kind of survey you can. On YouTube, you can have little survey on the right. On Facebook, Instagram, you can have survey. And you can use this time to learn more about your customers, or maybe your potential customers. So even just asking them, are you a current member of our clubs, or are you someone nobody knows and we'd like to talk to you? And that was also an opportunity. So the plan was connect with the team first. The second one was connect with the people, our customers. And the third plan, I will tell a little bit more later, it was to find every opportunities we can.
Thank you, Anthony. Now let's go to Annie Beck. And I'd like to talk about the future. And Annie, what do you think, what are you planning about the future? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think the immediate future holds what we're doing now is basically reassuring members. I think member confidence is most important at the moment to make sure that they feel safe coming to our club, and just information, following guidelines and building that member trust is for now the immediate future. But then I think in a few months, when we get back to what you refer to maybe as the new normal, we will be trying to target more the people who are not in our clubs and have never been in our clubs before, and maybe switch our language more towards wellness rather than training, and to really get a hold of the people who need us most. Lower thresholds, I think, is going to be our main goal for the fall.
During this period where you are open, have you noticed something changes in behaviors of the people, or also different targets of people coming to your gym to ask for membership?
No, at the moment the new members is very rare. Like I said before, the gym rats are there. The most frequent members are still coming, but the people who need it the most are not there. They're also, I think, the people who are the most afraid of catching the virus. So that's why I think we have to make sure that everybody feels safe to come to the clubs. And unfortunately, at the moment, I think it's more to do with the media than what we do actually in the clubs. Just for an example, last week in Sweden, the topic was restaurants. So we had a lot more visits in the clubs last week because everybody was talking about the restaurants and how you could catch COVID at the bar. Whereas 3 weeks ago, it was all about football teams. And then we see a decrease in visits. So I think it's a lot to do with fear in the public. And some of it is out of our hands at the moment.
Yeah. Thank you. And David, what's your vision of the future, David?
I think the pandemic... Oh, have you unmuted me?
Yeah, you can.
Thanks.
Go.
I think the pandemic has fast-tracked the lessons that we've learned from the music and TV, film industries, where the consumer wants to access the product when they want to. We know that the consumers want to access our products because there are 230 million of them around the world that are currently locked out of their clubs. So I think that the real lesson is that digital is going to be with us now in a much bigger way. So people will want to be able to access their classes and their fitness and their PTs when they want, and not as historically has been when we put it on the timetable.
Thank you. Victor.
Basically, the way I see the future, fitness has gone from us versus them. We've got better classes, we've got better equipment, to we as an industry. The industry has to come together and change the way the public perceives us. It is no longer about us and them. And there are two things as I see it, and the first is sanitation and cleanliness. And quite frankly, that's table stakes, people. That's table stakes. The world is going to expect everybody to be clean and sanitary, and we cannot get caught up in this. We're cleaner than that health club, and we're more sanitary than that health club, because we are perceived by the public as one. And the industry has to change the way people see us in that regard. And I think that is one, table stakes, and two, there's a 3-level of cleaning that we need to all be committed to. The first is ourselves and our staff cleaning, wiping down, whatever it is we do on a regular basis, quite frankly, what we've always done. The second is getting the members to be more conscientious in that regard. And the third is to use technology to have an always-on cleaning system that picks up when the members fail and when our staff fail, which they ultimately will. And there are multiple units out there, and I've actually done great research on what I think are the top 2, quite frankly, of anything, at least in the United States. And they basically ionize the air and create basically pathogen killers, free radicals that kill pathogens on contact. And it's an always-on cleaning system. And if you don't have that, you're irresponsible. Because if you're going to depend on your staff and your members to keep that club safe and sanitized, ultimately you will fail, just like they blow a phone call every now and then, and a toilet overflows every now and then, and they don't wipe equipment every now and then, but all of a sudden the stakes are so much higher. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, we as an industry have to flip the paradigm. Fausto, do you have that slide that I sent you? Could you throw that up for me, please? The how people respond to crisis. Do you have that? Can you share that?
Yes, just a moment.
Okay, so while he's sharing that, we have to go from being an industry of
this one?
No, it's no, that's not it. It's the graph I sent about how people react to crisis. Do you have that?
No, I don't.
Oh, it's a shame, boy. Anyway.
You can send to the attendees at the end. We have the email over everybody, so we can send them.
We have to understand how people react psychologically to crisis. And we have to go from being known for getting people fit and healthy to helping make people resilient. And I'm involved in the mental health field with this foundation called the John W. Brick Mental Health Foundation. And the whole concept of treating mental health now is making people resilient. So this is how people react to a crisis. They know a crisis is coming. There's something going on in China. We know that this pandemic or this virus could be deadly. But we don't take it seriously. And then it hits, and all of a sudden, there's a little bit of people being demoralized, but all of a sudden, everybody's going to rise to the occasion, and we go through this hero phase. And everybody's the hero. How you doing? Oh, I'm holding up. Your business is closed. How are you acting? Oh, we've worked it out. We're going to, and everybody's in this heroic phase and rising to the occasion. And they stayed, it happened with 9/11, it happened with the Depression, it happened with World War II in the United States. Everybody's gonna, and then all of a sudden the first big battle comes and a lot of Americans get killed. The economy's down in the 9/11, and you go through this drop. And boy, do I wish you had that, Fausto. I sent it to you, or I would have had it available, because if you don't see it visually, you can't understand it. After the pandemic, after we open, we're going to come off of this high, this heroic high we've all been on of championing the cause, and we're going to go into this valley. And this valley, Lynn, will you pull up that email I sent to Fausto so I can talk on this? We're going to go into this valley, and then we're going to come back out of it, and it will be very slow. And it could be 2 years. It could be a year and a half before psychologically, emotionally, people recover from this. What we need to do is we need to shorten that valley. And we need to shorten it by letting people know, like David said, that fitness not only improves health, it builds the immune system, and it changes the mental state of people. We need to go from being thought of as being recreational and being non-essential to being critical to the mental and physical health of whatever country you're in or whatever population you're dealing with. I was talking to the gentleman that did this chart. His name's George Everly, and he's the top foremost pandemic specialist. So we're going into the gradual decline. We're going to get into the disillusionment phase. All of you are going to get into the disillusionment phase when your businesses are open and nobody's coming for the first 3 to 6 months. You think we're going to get back to normal. We will not, and you will go into this disillusionment phase, and it will be as much emotional as it is physical, and then eventually we'll get into the reconstruction. But anyway, Dr. Everly was talking about the fact that one exercise session is the equivalent of the entry-level dose of an antidepressant, such as Zoloft. How many people do you know? You'd be shocked. I bet you 30 to 40% of the people you know are on antidepressant. One exercise session is the equivalent of one entry-level antidepressant. That's the message we've got to get across. We have to flip this paradigm. We are not just about looking good and feeling good. We are about building resiliency, increasing the autoimmune system, making ourselves more resilient till the next time this comes, because one of two things will happen. This will come back, or something else will. And if this world continues to de-evolve physiologically so that we are less and less capable of handling crisis physically and emotionally, we are going to have these lockdowns every couple of years. It is up to us to flip that paradigm and start to be getting people to be resilient again, be able to handle these crises emotionally and physically.
Thank you, Victor. I'll send to all the attendees your slide. Jonathan.
It's called, just real quick, it's called the physiological phases in crisis and disaster. The physiological phases in crisis and disaster.
Okay, thank you. Jonathan, what's your vision?
Yeah, thank you, Victor and Fausto. A lot of interesting points being made here. I mean, one of my observations is that I think it's been more difficult running a closed business than running an open business. There have been a lot of challenges. And I think one of the challenges about running a closed business is you don't quite yet know what it's going to be like when you open. So in some ways, I'm looking forward to actually getting into that new stage. And definitely there's going to be a transition phase. And I agree with Victor that when you look at the emotional steps through dealing with crisis or dramatic change, then there does come a point after the initial denial and anger and frustration where you start adapting. And then when you realize that adaptation isn't solving your problems really, and that they're still there, then there is this sort of disillusionment or drop stage. And I think there comes at that point, there's a tipping point or a turning point where a decision is made to really start looking at where the opportunities are to restructure your business so that it can be a meaningful business, whether it be in terms of the contribution to society or whether it be being financially viable or profitable. I think the future holds that curve. And of course, the sooner people get to that tipping point and start as my one friend says, starts reimagining their business or restructuring their business for this new reality, then I think progress will start being made. As this all broke, I was plotting out different scenarios with a high-ranking executive in the States, and we were looking at it and we were doing our worst-case scenarios. And of course, all of our worst-case scenarios are now like moderate-case scenarios, that they actually panned out. So I think what I would say to everybody here is, assume that this transition phase is going to take a long time. assume 12 months of having to operate your business in one form or another of a restricted way. That's my working base plan at the moment, that it's going to take me at least 12 months. I need to be able to run the businesses for at least a 12-month period in whatever format is going to be required by government and by public opinion. And in Europe, actually, it's very difficult to know what that's going to look like. Of course, there's going to be some degree of social distancing involved in it, but to quite what degree governments and regulations actually get into the detail of how you actually operate your business is potentially very, very frightening. But all of the things that we're doing in terms of building the different scenarios of how we're going to reopen the clubs is we're obviously looking at making our booking systems more robust. We're looking about how we can restrict numbers, not only through booking systems, but in different areas of the club and the club as a whole, because that's something that's being spoken about as being possible. How can we educate our members, as Victor was saying, and be transparent with them, getting them to collaborate and help us to social distance and to keep cleanliness and sanitization? What are we looking, how should our group exercise schedules look different? Group exercise, what was there before, shouldn't necessarily be what should be there afterwards. Maybe we need different types of group exercise in the club. Maybe there aren't going to be group X timetables when we first open up. How do we give personal training? Our personal training protocols we're looking to review and revise. The layouts of our gym were built for a different sort of workout, a different sort of era. So we're looking at different layouts. So all of these are in many ways different scenarios that each of our teams are looking at in different ways in order to be as ready as we can when we get clarity from governments and regulations as what to do. After that 12-month period, or however long that transition period is going to be, I'm fairly optimistic because fundamentally I don't think that as social beings, our desire to be in social environments is going to change. I heard someone say recently, and I think it was a very insightful point, that after the Spanish flu, so-called, and First World War, you had the Roaring '20s, where social activity went off the scale in the 1920s. So I do expect for there to be a huge bounce back in terms of wanting that social connection. People are going to be looking for that, undoubtedly. The question is, what's going to happen in that transition period? And I think the challenge for us, if I just play devil's advocate to what Victor was saying, whilst I fully endorse everything he says about the benefits of exercise, I think the challenge for us as owners of clubs and facilities is that whilst that message may be propagated and communicated and endorsed, why should someone do that in a club as opposed to doing it at home? And that's what the whole digital explosion has been. And we've had different levels of success, but for example, I can say that in Portugal, for over the 6 weeks, we've had 3 million views of our workouts on Facebook and Instagram. That's a huge percentage of the population that have come in. So digital is relevant. I don't think it's changing it. I think what's happened with this period is that it's accelerated people's exposure to digital. And what that means is it's going to require an acceleration of the way in which we integrate digital options for our members. So whilst we decided as a brand to offer all of our digital content in Tribe as a boutique and in Holmes Place, to offer all our digital content for free for the benefit of members and non-members, as we reopen our clubs, we want to make sure that we have a digital package which is value add for our members, which only members can get and which non-members would have to pay for. And I think there's a very interesting question there, which Anthony started to address, is what is it that makes a remote workout through Zoom or any other platform, Instagram, what is it that makes that something that someone's willing to pay for? Because the amount of good digital content out there that you don't have to pay for is is everywhere. So we're doing a lot of thinking around what it is we can do in order to make that content, value add. And I think it's some sort of combination of that personal relationship and engagement. Some element of personalization needs to take place in that digital offering in order to provide value. So we're looking at how to do that at the same time as integrating that to our real life bricks and mortar experience.
Thank you, Jonathan. Interesting. Brent.
Yes, great comments by everyone so far. Can you hear me, Pastor?
We've met dozens of owners in US. So what's your vision of the future?
Well, I think I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the cleaning part first. And I like to use something I call conspicuous cleaning. So although I think most health clubs have been pretty dedicated to the cleaning protocols they've had, that's going to have to be on a whole nother level. Many clubs are going through the sort of consumer journey mapping, and we talk about that from a member experience standpoint in the past, and now it's about the physical touch points through your club and making sure you have solutions that are sanitary and protective for the members. So that would be one comment. Second, some of the financial experts in the United States are projecting that as many as 20% of the clubs will not be reopening. So I think the landscape will be changing. The competitive dynamics will be changing, not only because clubs will have this slow return to, as Annie said, the new normal, but many of those clubs, frankly, won't come back probably in the U.S., or they'll discover they're not able and to sustain their success over opening with the limited attendance that they'll get once they do reopen. Like Jonathan was mentioning, I think the clubs have learned about the digital profitability and how that can reach members outside the four walls. And so, of course, clubs are going to continue that. And there, as another word I use, is top grading. People are looking at their talent and their programs and their equipment, and they're realizing we need to become leaner, we need to become meaner. And so they're just making higher ranking choices about what they're going to provide to their members, whether it's included in their price point, or as Jonathan mentioned, it's an additional service that they're offering online. And then the other thing I think that the clubs are sharing that they've learned is that the sense of community among members is possible even when they don't come to the club. So continuing some of these Facebook groups, as well as the online classes, the online education, the social component, I think clubs that will embrace that as a natural extension of their offerings going forward.
Thank you, Brent. Paula, what's your plan for the reopening? Yeah, that's it.
Jata? Yeah. Well, regarding people's behavior in the post-pandemic period, I think they will continue to have fear. And the ability of the human being to adapt is surprising. So objectively, all of us have in mind to auto-preserve ourselves. And so social distance and hygiene will be strongly ensured and will become the new normal. And I think our plan to reopen will be focused on the cleanliness and sanitization as everybody, because people are afraid. They will need to feel safe, and with this, in terms of business, the online is here to stay. Although in a survey that we made, like Anthony, I follow his idea, and we made a survey of our members, and a sample of 1,000 people, 80% want to go back to the gym and train in the club. They don't want to train at home. Well, although these things, we will maintain our online presence even stronger, because we don't know how many times we have to lock down again. So we have to have both options. Well, and as we will open with restrictions, I think our focus should be also on the member experience. to be as enjoyable and similar as possible. Our members will have to recognize the restrictions as a positive thing and not as an obstacle. We have to find a way to make it easier and a bit fun. I think we should focus on that too, because if someone is going to train in our clubs and it's a lot of things they have to do, and the mask and the shoes, and you know, I think the experience is gone and they don't want to go and they will cancel, I think. In Portugal, Portugal Ativo, based on a research and expert consultation, has produced a document listing all the measures and the recommendations to be taken into account by the sector, all the sector. These measures aim to ensure the safety of both staff and members, for example, 1 person per 4 square meters, closed showers, among other measures. And this document is awaiting for government approval, and that's the document that we will follow the rules to reopen the clubs. I also would like to add that Portugal Ativo and our president, José Carlos Reis, has done an excellent job during this lockdown supporting Portuguese small club owners, because they are all lost and no one had support from anyone. And Portugal Ativo has done a great job, in my opinion.
Thank you, Paula. Anthony.
Try to be quick. I know you're running out of time, so I will go for 3 points. You fine?
Yeah, you're fine. You are the sea optimist. What's your?
Yeah, I think it's exactly that. I think in our philosophy, in every difficulty there is opportunities. So I think there is 3 things. The first thing is stop guessing. Ask your customer what they want, ask what they fear, ask when they will come back. That's what we did. We had a lot of feedback, and they told us 90% told us they will come back the next week after the opening. They told us what they will fear. So now we can find solution for them. And the second point is, I think there is a new customer segmentation. You got a customer from your club who are following you on live and virtually. They are customers of your club who are not following you at all, and you need to talk to them. There are customers who are not in your club, but they can be in the future because they live near your clubs. And there are also new kind of customers. For example, in my virtual classes, I got people from London and people from Spain. So they will never be member of my clubs, but maybe they can be virtual member one day. So that's a new kind of segmentation, new kind of customer I never thought about. That's a great opportunity. And the last point, I hope I can open some mind here. And I think we would never open the club we closed. We have to know that right now. And I'd like to bring a much broadly perspective of the world, because we need to rethink our model, but not only economically, but in terms of planet impact. And we all need to lower our costs. So all the question about sustainability, lower electricity costs, lower all the water we waste every year in our clubs. There's many solutions now coming up, and we need to think about this, being paperless, being touchless. And I think there is a huge opportunity for the market going into the sharing economy. For example, maybe we can sell some fitness items. I mean, I know about selling items with Decathlon, right? But maybe there is an opportunity to rent. Because, for example, we got 80 bikes in our clubs, in every club, 80 cycling bikes. But we can do it because they ask us to have 1 member for every 5 square meters. So we are thinking now about renting some of our bikes to people, and they are very exciting about that. And we got virtual class with a package. We can rent one of our cycling. I mean, so sharing economy with all the assets we have may be a great opportunity for the people. But once again, in every difficulty, opportunities. So I hope all of you guys will find some.
Thank you, Anthony. Thank you. It's time for question and answers. Gabriella, what do we have?
Right. Now, I'll address straight away Vicki Brick, Planet Fitness. We have two attendees asking the same thing. So, Victor, can you please share information on the two cleaning system technologies you refer to?
Okay. Now, keep in mind that this is strictly personal based on my research. You should do your own. But the two equipment technologies that I think are the best in that space are Puradigm, P-U-R-A-D-I-G-M, Puradigm, and Airfix, A-I-R, capital P-H-X. Both of them don't go into the ventilation system. They're standalone technology units. They process the air that comes in. They change the molecular makeup of the air, create free ions, free radicals. Free radicals, as you know, seek to pair with another radical, and therefore they come across pathogens, and they attack a pathogen the way free radicals attack cancer in the body. Cancer is caused by free radicals, correct? When my wife's a nurse, attacking your own cells. So those are the two systems I would strongly, I'm looking into, but there are others, and they may be just as good. But the thing you want to look at when you look at these systems are, have they been tested? Have people used them? And what is their kill rate, their sanitation rate in the air and also on the surface? In the air and on the surface. If all the studies done by these systems have just been done in a laboratory somewhere, that's easy to kill stuff. But if they've been out and being used by health clubs, athletic facilities, schools, hospitals, that's a whole different ballgame. That's what you want, systems that have been used in the real world.
And Gabrielle, this is Brent, and I would add one other resource. It's called NanoSeptic. So people would go to nanoseptic.com, and it's actually a sticker that you can apply to door handles and high-touch surfaces. They'll even put your logo on it if you're interested, but it goes in keeping with the comment that we need to be visual and conspicuous about what we've done to change the perception of the consumer that we're, highly clean spaces. So again, I've not used it personally, much like Victor, just through research, but many of the clubs in the US are looking at that product.
Right, great, thank you so much. And to Jonathan Fisher, what is the main area of focus with remote workouts? What advice can you give to a club who has not experienced with this platform?
I don't think I'm qualified to give good direction on it. I think I'm learning. So please take whatever I say in that spirit. I think there's a lot of what Paula said. When you're giving online content, it really helps if you put it on a timetable and it's at a fixed time. That doesn't mean to say that it can't be available later if you've missed it, but there's something about human psychology that if you know it's happening at a certain time, you can plan for it. And if you've got too much choice, then it leads to inaction. So I'd say, first of all, timetabling is really important. The second thing you need to look at is your instructor. A good instructor in the class is not necessarily a good instructor in front of the camera. I think I'm not a bad speaker in front of people, but I think perhaps I'm a very poor speaker in front of a computer camera. So you need to look at a different type of instructor coming for that. And the third thing is you need to look at different programming, because you're doing a program in a class with lots of equipment, with space around you, is not the same as doing it in your living room or in your bedroom next to your bed. So a different sort of programming. So I'll look at all of those three angles, but still my fear around that is that it may not be enough to really justify value. So what is it that we can bring to the table that will make someone be willing to pay for it? So I'm a big believer in the power of brand. A brand stands for values. It delivers on a vision. And if a brand has been around for a while and it's been delivering on that, then there's a power of brand value that can that can deliver it, but it can't be empty. There needs to be a vision that you're delivering in that online content. But I believe some degree of personalization needs to be taking place in order to make online content meaningful for and to be able to monetize online content and not just make it available as a free donation or contribution to society. I hope that
right.
point is.
Thank you. And to all panelists, we had a question about where do you see yourself, where do you envisage your business being from October onwards, basically, until March 2021. So, Paula, can you comment on that? Where do you see your business being in terms of new sales, cancellations, free activity, daily visits?
I think it won't be the normal that like was in February last. I think it will be a long way to get people's trust again. They want to come. I know they are happy if I open the gym, all the gyms, and they want to come and be with their friends. But I'm afraid that the reality will be not the same that it was. We'll try the most that we can to give them the best experience. Well, I see that we can recover, but it will take time.
Right, thank you.
Yes.
David? David Minton? Same question. UK, where do you see yourself?
In the UK, we have estimated that about in between 10 and 12% of clubs will not reopen. And we also estimate around 9% of members that have not been to the club for the last 12 months will not renew. So there will be a small amount of shrinkage, but you must weigh that against the opportunity to expand to a much bigger audience. And if our public health messages get across, then we think that we could double the size of the industry.
Right. Also, picking up on what Victor and actually others said, Brent as well, Paula, this focus on changing the image, by the way, there were a lot of comments on that, compliments on that. So changing the image and the classification, the way that the fitness industry is seen as, Victor was saying before, a step down from hospitals and doctors. So in a health environment, in the way that the members, the club members, the club goers can actually be seen as building resilience. Can something be done to campaign for this?
Yes, we can do a lot of things about it, but I think the main word for this crisis is resilience. Yes, it's the main word. And I think we should, for a long time ago, not now, but since ever, we should be in the people's lives, in their routine, like brushing our teeth. We should do exercise. And it shouldn't be an issue to talk about this. It should be normal. And I think it starts at schools and teaching our little ones to do exercise every day and why it's important to them, not being sitting all day. And these kind of habits are very important to teach. And sometimes they are forgotten. Sorry. So sometimes it's forgotten. And I think reading and being very good in other, how you say it, matters, subjects. It's more valued than the exercise.
Right. Victor, you were saying something?
Sorry.
I was going to say that I've been in the fitness industry since the early 80s. There was a time in the fitness industry where people joined for two reasons: to get bigger and to get smaller. The men joined to get bigger, the women joined to get smaller. We've got to get away from that, and we've got to get to where they join to be healthier and to live longer. And in order to do that, it's a multi-pronged attack. We've got to come off of all this advertising showing people that nobody can possibly look like. We've got to stop stressing all these workouts that only the fanatical people like myself, no, just kidding, but only the fanatical people can do. And we've got to start pushing this message of living longer, changing people's lives, being healthier, and being a form of preventive as opposed to basically a physical thing. And it's got to be, it's where our associations come into play, and where we all have to realize, as David says, that other 85%, they're not in about building big muscles and about having 24-inch waists. They're about being healthier, more resilient, like Paula says, and living longer. And we've got to do it not just because it's the right thing to do, but financially, I truly believe it will now become the more profitable thing to do. Push resiliency, longevity, and health as opposed to appearance and fitness.
That's right. And in fact, actually, we have another question about when you think the new normality will return in the new year. Annie, can you, I mean, the situation in Sweden is slightly different, but do you think that, do you envisage the new normality coming back somehow soon? Well,
I think it all depends on what happens with the COVID situation, but we're hoping for September to be back to sort of normal in Sweden, because, I mean, obviously we got another platform to jump off from since we've been open. So, I mean, I think now with losing 25% visits is still 75% there. So hopefully after summer we'll be kicking off as normal in September. That's my hope. But probably not as normal, but near to normal in terms of members.
Right. There are some more questions about digital platforms, but I think you've already given a lot of information on that, and we'll reply to the others. And Fausto, if there is time for something else on the resilience element, I was looking because I was interested to see what, as a key element, you were all saying basically the same thing, although Jonathan said that according to the countries that you deal with, things tend to be different. They can have different approaches in how to deal with problems. However, this thing about what was focused on today, resilience, that sounds like an international element to focus on. So much so that out of curiosity, I went to see the etymology of the word, which obviously has a Latin origin, and it has something to do with rebound, recoil, re-jump, salire, which is jump or a leap in Italian. Leap is a big jump, basically. So I just wanted to focus on that to support the idea that this image, which seems to be what COVID-19 has gifted the industry with, a new image. And so, yes, that's. I just wanted to personally add that.
Yeah, this is the change that we are aiming.
Pardon, say that again.
This is the great change that we are aiming.
Exactly.
I'd like to close because we have come to the end with one question to Victor, because Victor is the owner of the largest budget chain in the world, 1,600 clubs, all the chain. Victor, to be profitable, a budget chain should have 3-4 members per square meter, right?
Yes. The Planet's a little unique in that we always were a big box budget chain, and we're going to be fine. That where Planet is not, we 2,000 to 3,000 square meter clubs, so you can get a lot of people in there even with the social distancing. By the way, I don't like the word social distancing because it's not social distancing, it's physical distancing. We have to, that's another thing where we got to change that paradigm. The thing people need most right now is socialization. The thing they need most. The thing they need the most is not stay away from people, connect. They need to physically distance, but only physically. But anyway, the point is that where Planet is most at risk is that we have almost no virtual presence. Brick Bodies, by the way, has a great virtual presence, and they do very, very well with it. And that is certainly here to stay for sure. So that's where Planet is more at risk, quite frankly, than they are with limiting the space, because over time, I agree with Jonathan, what came after World War I, then the Spanish flu, was the Roaring '20s. And if we think we're going to get people to not attend football matches, to not attend movies, to not attend concerts, to not attend graduate, we're dreaming. This is temporary. If we think we're going to physical distance indefinitely, we're dreaming. That's not the way people work. What does work is where our markets will be in 3 years from now, who will be the winners and who will be the losers.
Yeah. Thank you, Victor. Okay, I want to thank you all the speakers for the contribution and all the attendees. Thank you very much, and see you next week at the same time, same day, with other speakers. And stay healthy, stay fit. Ciao, thank you.